How's it going, everybody? It's your world champion here, and we are back with season 2. Season 2? Am I breaking these arc reviews up into seasons? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Well, welcome back. It's been a while since I've had an arc review come out, and what better way to start this new season of arc reviews than with the second of the big three that I grew up with. That's right. We are now going to talk about Bleach, which had a very good introductory arc, if I may say so myself. But before we dive into the arc itself, you need to direct your attention to the description down below. I've got a lot of links to my social networks, my Twitter, Instagram, my Twitch channel, which you can watch me play video games, and a second channel where I upload the VODs to there. Be sure to subscribe there so you don't miss those in case you miss the live streams. And also, there's a link to a place called the Void Century Club. It's a forum where you can talk anything One Piece, MHA, or Bleach related, since Bleach is coming back with the anime continuation as well as a new arc in the manga, which I am super excited for. So if you check that video out, great, awesome, glad you're here from it. And with that all out of the way, let's now talk about Bleach. So I want to start this off just with a quick little history of me with Bleach. So I'm an older person. I'm 30 now. So I actually grew up with Naruto and Bleach on TV. And they were I don't want to say my first two anime, but they were the first two series that actually got me thinking more deeply about anime and manga content. And I actually started collecting Bleach manga when I was in high school. And there was at least one person I talked with about Bleach on a weekly or daily basis. So it was pretty cool. It was a good time to be a mini walk-ins back then. Bleach, for me, it always aired late on TV. So it was one of those shows where it's just oh, I get to watch a late night program now. And this is awesome. This is great. But it had this style where just this guy, he's not necessarily a delinquent, so a lot of people want to give the Yu Yu Hakusho comparison with Bleach, but Ichigo isn't really like Yusuke in that he's a super delinquent. He's just somebody that he's a little rough around the edges, but he does care about the people that are in his life. But we'll talk more about Ichigo's character during this first arc. So this first episode here, or first chapter, whatever you want to talk about, introductory to Ichigo. So he's a 15-year-old high school student who can see spirits, and we see him beating up some thugs who knocked down a vase from this girl who died, and he's just making them apologize to her and all that. So we already get off the bat what Ichigo's like as a character. He's somebody that, again, like I said earlier, just a little rough around the edges, but he does care about the people that he wants to care about, so they can be friends, family, or just a ghost that needs to pass on. We even get to meet his family here, with his dad being very overbearing and his sisters, who one is basically the mom of the group and the other is basically just wants nothing to do with everybody. And that's when we get to also meet the Soul Reaper, Rukia Kuchiki. Now she's the one that kind of sets everything in motion, and she's the one that kind of dumps on all the lore on us in the early stages of the series. So Rukia and Ichigo meet, and probably one of the funniest lines of Ichigo, hearing the story about Soul Reapers and Hollows and flipping a table because he doesn't believe it. Hilarious things right there, which I don't think people really give Kubo enough credit for his comedy. It's very, part of it can be dry humor, but it is very funny and slapstick, and I actually really appreciated it from this revisit that I'm doing. But after hearing all this, Ichigo, we learn that he only believes things that he can see. So now that he's seen a Soul Reaper, he can actually start believing in it. So Rukia is saying that she's trying to look for this hollow. She can't really pinpoint its exact location. It feels like there's some sort of jammer in the way. And that's when Ichigo starts hearing the howl of a hollow, and the hollow attacks the house. And that's when Rukia's just wait, crap, how did I not feel this beforehand? How did I not sense this hollow coming? And how did he hear it? How did he understand that? They start having a big fight. Ichigo tries to protect his family, which, okay, I'm going to try not to do too much about comparing the anime with the manga, especially with this early arc, but it's going to be a little challenging because this early arc, a lot of things changed between the manga and the anime. Whether it was like certain characters being attacked, like for example, Yuzu and Karin were switched between the anime and manga on who told Ichigo what was happening and who got attacked by the Hollow. That was switched, and then some other things were switched around too, or not even said or anything. So I'm gonna try not to do too many comparisons, but when it is needed, I am going to say it, and it'll come later on down the line. So they start having a fight. Ichigo's trying to protect his family, and Rukia, she puts her life on the line to protect them and all that. And that's when we get this scene where Rukia's like, hey, you want to save your family, right? You want to protect everybody, right? I can give you the power. Just put my sword into your neck and you will get the power of a soul reaper. And that's when we get the iconic scene of Ichigo getting the power, having the giant sword, and defeating Fishbone. And that's pretty much the first episode. And we find out later on that Ichigo now needs to become a substitute soul reaper because he accidentally took all of Rukia's powers, So she meets up with him like at school and all that and tells him all this. And this is when we find out just a little bit more of Ichigo's character again. Like, he's somebody that is going to protect the people that are right in front of him. He's not going to risk his life for the people that he doesn't know or for strangers and all that, which ends up changing even in this arc. So for all you guys that are out there, all you Bleach haters, I am going to say this. For those that say Ichigo doesn't change throughout the series, he literally changes in the same exact arc. The very first arc. He changes his mindset about things. We continue this introductory style arc with introducing some of the side characters. So we get to dive deeper into Orihime Inoue as a character. So she's this girl that has a crush on Ichigo, and a lot of people usually say, oh, well, she's just a simp for Ichigo, and oh, she's just another Sakura, blah, blah, blah. Well, upon revisit, nah, I don't see it. I don't see it anymore. I now see the little hints and the little breadcrumbs that Kubo was leaving as for Orihime as a character, and it's actually quite brilliant when you look at it. But I'll talk about that at another day. So we learn a little bit about Orihime's past, how she had a brother who died I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was 2 years prior to the story starting, and so he's just a spirit lingering, and he turned into a hollow. Now the anime and manga again differ because hollows take him and turn him into a hollow and all that, and he had just recently become a hollow when he attacks Orihime. We don't necessarily get her powers, we just get her introduction and a little bit of her story where she loved her brother. They grew up in a very abusive household. In the manga, we have the actual story of how her dad was a drunk, and I think their mom basically wasn't a good person. So Sora, her brother, got her out of there, basically becoming her dad because he's 15 years older than her, takes care of her, and that's pretty much that. And then he dies, and now she's all alone and all that. So yeah, he tries to kill her because she stopped praying for him 24/7. She started living her life more, and she wouldn't just spend her time grieving, and which is okay. I understand as a spirit, you don't want people to forget about you, because when you're forgotten about, that's when you truly die. Just throwing that out there. He continues on by trying to just kill her, because if he can't have her, nobody should. And so Tatsuki gets involved because she's over there with Orihime. Ichigo comes running, and this is where he learns that hollows are actually spirits of real people. They're not just obliterating hollows, they're actually just cleansing hollows to get them into the soul society. So back in the first episode, we learned that there's 2 ways to cleanse a soul. There's a whole soul, which is your everyday spirit, and you perform something called a kanso, which is basically just taking the hilt, the bottom end of the hilt of your sword, and just bonking it on the head of a spirit, and they go straight to the Soul Society. And with spirits that become hollows, that's when you have to like exorcise them. So this is where Ichigo learns that lesson of, okay, strike a hollow quick and easy in the head, split that head, get it out of here, and let's move on. And luckily Orihime is fine, and Rukia uses her Men in Black thing to erase her memories and all that. Replace her memories, And yeah, we just move on to the next introductory arc, which is all about Chad. Oh, Chad. Oh, Chad. Oh, no. So Chad's a cool character. He's a very sturdy individual. You'd be surprised to know that he's 15 years old and built like a truck. And by built like a truck, I mean he's literally a truck. Like, his introduction, he has an I-beam fall on him, and he only walks away with like bruises and bleeding. He goes to school the next day and he's fine. So with Chad's story, we don't get the full backstory like we did with Orihime. We actually just get him as a character and how he is. He's carrying around this parakeet that can talk. And apparently it's like the soul of a child in there. So Chad basically is carrying around this bird because this hollow that we see known as Shrieker? I think it's Shrieker. Let's go with Shrieker right now. So Shrieker basically is forcing this kid to be with these people and saying, hey, if you can survive for 3 days, I'll bring your mom back to life. But you can, because that is not a thing in any sort of world or space or anything, unless you're in Dragon Ball. But anyways, they have a fight. I know I'm kind of skimming a little bit here, but honestly, like, these are some good, decent introductory chapters and episodes of these characters. So we see that Rukia, she's going to try to eliminate the hollow. We still see that she doesn't have her powers anymore. Still, she can activate spells, but they're not strong. They're basically like a flick to these hollows, so that's a thing. But we see that, Chad, even though he can't see these hollows, he can still attack them, and he can still like surprise them. So like we see in this picture, he just burst up from these toad things that are launching these leeches. We also see that he rips a phone pole off and just bonks this hollow on the head, and then punches it early. Like, Chad is a beast, and he doesn't even have powers. He's just whacking this hollow. I mean, he's not really doing much damage, but he's just whacking the hollow. But not only do we get more with Chad, but we get more with Yuzu, one of Ichigo's sisters. So Yuzu, she actually like has this really big connection with the soul that's inside the bird, to the point where she gets legitimately sick from everything, and Ichigo has to take her home, and she like begs and pleads Ichigo, please, you need to save the child that's in this bird, please do it for me. And he does it. He defeats Shrieker, and probably one of my favorite scenes where he just takes some of the leeches and just shoves it right into Shrieker's mouth, and he's just like, go on, detonate them. Oh, you can't? All right, well, I'll just rip your tongue out from you and take it for myself. So Shrieker can't do anything, and after Ichigo defeats him, that's when we get our introduction to Hell. Yeah, Hell's a thing in this world, and if you know anything about what's going on right now, Hell. Anyway, leaving it there. So he gets sent to Hell because this guy, when he was alive, he was a serial killer. Fun twist of fate. The soul of the kid in the bird was actually the one that killed him, because he like tied his shoelaces after he killed his mom, and then he fell, and basically an embarrassment of a serial killer and all that. So our next character introduction is Kon. So Kon is a mod soul from a little tiny pellet that came from Soul Society, and we also get Kisuke Urahara's little introduction in his group as well, but I don't want to dive too much into Kisuke, at least right now. I'm going to save that conversation for another time. So, Kon inhabits Ichigo's body when he turns into a Soul Reaper. He basically shoves Ichigo's soul out and takes over for a little bit and all that, and wacky hijinks ensue when he gets out, because he just goes to Ichigo's classroom and starts like kissing every single girl that he sees. It's kind of funny and kind of creepy at the same time. Basically, being a mod soul is a bad thing because they created these mod souls to like inhabit dead bodies and in order to like fight hollows and all that. But as soon as they were created, they were deemed unnecessary for the Soul Society, and they were basically sentenced to be destroyed. And Kon was the last one that got out somehow because he rolled into a thing of goods. So yeah, this pervert got out, and now he lives inside of a teddy bear. Isn't that just cute? Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say about Kon. I mean, he basically adds the comic relief to the cast. It's actually really funny because in the manga, before they find the teddy bear to put Kon in, Ichigo and Rukia are trying to look for a dead body. So they're trying to use like maybe a dead cat that got run over or a dog or something, and it doesn't really work that way. So they try it out on a stuffed animal, and that's how we get our lovable Kon right here. So again, he's basically just comic relief for right now. I mean, he has some other cool scenes later on, but we'll get to those when we cross it. Not too much to say about Kon right now. So remember earlier when I was talking about differences in the anime and manga and how like some of it is like how characters are portrayed and all that? So one of those was Orihime. And because in the manga, like she's more understanding and you can tell that she's learning more about Ichigo and learning to be more sympathetic and empathetic with him and all that. I mean, you see it in the anime as well, but it's more noticeable in the manga, at least for me. Here's another interesting change that the anime decided to do, and it all has to do with Grand Fisher. We actually get a filler character in this from the Stealth Force. He comes down and he tries to see what's going on with Rukia. He's just like, hey, what you doing? What you doing, girl? Why are you still here in the world of living? What are you still doing? Is it a boy? Are you in love with a boy? Is that it? It's not it. Whatever. So the guy wasn't even in there in the manga. This is actually a part of the arc that I preferred in the manga compared to the anime, because with Rukia, it mainly has to deal with Rukia's character and Grand Fisher's character. I could care less about the filler character, whatever. So Rukia, she finds out that Ichigo wants a day off. And she's just like, wait, why? You can't just ask for a day off. You're a Soul Reaper. And he wants a day off because it's the anniversary that his mom was killed. And it's a very convoluted way that Ichigo thinks his mom died. I understand the reasoning behind it because, like, he sees this girl, like, okay. So the story behind it is when Ichigo was like 5 or 6, or he was very young. He couldn't really tell between real people and ghosts and spirits. So one day, while it's like pouring down rain, he's walking with his mom, and his mom, by the way, is basically the center of his whole family's universe. So Ichigo looks over and he sees this young lady just standing by the riverbed, and the river's just like crashing and waving and all that because it's, you know, a big old storm's happening. And Ichigo tries to go over there and save her and like help her out. And next thing he knows, he's waking up with his mom bleeding right on top of him. What ends up happening is he basically feels like it's his fault because he went to the girl, he decided, okay, I'm going to help this person, and now my mom's dead because of that. So he feels like he's to blame for basically everyone's life leaving, which, whatever, fine. We find out that that person was actually a hollow, but before we find all that out, Rukia confronts Ichigo at like the gravesite and all that, and she's probing him about how his mom died, and she starts saying, well, what if it was a hollow? And he like freaks out on her, says, you don't understand anything. And so she starts coming to the realization herself that she needs to be more empathetic towards Ichigo in these certain situations. And we see a nice cool little moment where like they're both running to where the hollow is, like they're both running from opposite ends, they meet, and then they turn and run. And then that's when they have like a conversation where Rukia basically tells Ichigo, when you're ready to tell me about what happened, I'll be here to listen. And we still kind of get that talk, but she doesn't really realize it herself, and that's part of the reason why the filler character was there, to just kind of help her realize that as well, because he's making fun of her about some things and all that. And I don't know, I prefer the way the manga did it compared to the anime in this instance. And another thing that I appreciated the manga more than the anime is Grand Fisher. So in the anime, they're making it seem like Grand Fisher was planning all of this all along. That he was planning all these hollows to go attack Ichigo. Because like at the beginning of the episode, he's just like, oh, I guess I'll just go then. And he starts heading out to get Ichigo. Like, he is targeting Ichigo for a reason. Whereas the manga, Grand Fisher is just some other hollow. He's just like, I don't even know who the hell you are. I'm gonna stab you and get, your memories from you. And, boom, bam, there's your mom right there to kind of trick you a little bit, you stupid Soul Reaper. But again, the anime, it made it seem like Grand Fisher was this grand schemer, if you will. I don't know. Again, I preferred the manga version of this because now, we're seeing two warriors who didn't really know each other or had, much of a connection now start having that connection. Because Ichigo's just like, well, no, you killed my mom. I'm gonna kill you. I am going to murder you. He tells Rukia to stay away. I'm gonna take care of this. I'm going to defeat Grand Fisher. I'm going to avenge my mother. And I'm going to do this right now because I am Ichigo mother flippin' Kurosaki. And they have a fight. And Ichigo at least injures Grand Fisher. And so there's a setup for another clash in the future, because Grand Fisher does end up escaping and Ichigo left behind, still to wallow a little bit, realizing that his mom was killed by a hollow. Now, the reason that I'm naming this section Ichigo's Why is because throughout the first, I think it was 16 chapters before this section started, Ichigo was only doing the Soul Reaper gig as something to pay Rukia back for. So, oh, you saved my life, and now, I have to repay you for all this. Fine, whatever. I'll do your job for you. With the stuff with Grand Fisher, it gives Ichigo a reason to continue on, a reason to fight these hollows. And his reasoning is because he doesn't want anybody to be hurt or suffered the same way that him and his family did, which is really good. Because again, one of the biggest complaints about Ichigo was that he doesn't have any goals or aspirations or anything. And with a lot of people, when they talk about Shonen Jump, and especially some of the series in Shonen Jump, everybody has to have a dream, a goal, a destination. Well, Ichigo's dream and goal is to protect everybody. And his early goal right here is to make sure nobody suffers the way he had to. That carries on throughout the whole series when you think about it and when you look at it. Ichigo is a protector. He even states that his dad told him that his name means one who protects. So that's just Ichigo in a nutshell. He's a protector. That is what he does. And also, speaking of his dad, I love the line that his dad has. So at the end of all this, Ichigo is just looking at the grave, and his dad comes by, and he starts kind of opening up to him a little bit, saying, I wish you guys would blame me a lot more for having mom killed. I wish you guys would just hate me. And Ishin, Ichigo's dad, he's just like, well, no. Why would we hate you? Your mom would hate that. She would despise us for doing that. He basically tells him to live a good life, and live a life that he's proud of and all that. So he walks away, and then we pretty much ended there. Again, Ichigo finds his why, and the reason I use the term find his why is because it's something that drives you. Why do you do something like this? Why am I going to work every single day? Why am I making these videos of talking about cartoons on the internet? Why are we doing this? But that's a whole conversation for another time. So I want to take some time right now to talk about Don Kanonji, who is this century's premier spiritualist. That's right. quick little episode here of Don Kanonji and just showing more of Ichigo growing as a character and growing as a Soul Reaper, because he uses this opportunity to teach Don Kanonji about hollows and Soul Reapers and spirits and all that. It's done in a very comedic way, and the biggest takeaway from this is showing that Ichigo is learning from his experiences, and to show that, Kisuke Urahara, Mr. Hat and Clogs, is always watching, and to just kind of set up a little bit more down the road of what's about to happen later on in the arc. Okay, so here's the meat and potatoes of this arc. This is the time where we get not only another character introduction, but more of two other characters that we were already introduced to. Uryu Ishida. He's killing hollows left and right, faster than Ichigo and Rukia can even get to. And so we find out that Uryu is something called a Quincy, this race of people that would kill hollows. They had tons of spiritual pressure, and they were able to kill hollows. And basically the biggest thing with Quincy's is they were obliterating hollows rather than cleansing them. So this is also where we learned that Soul Reapers were also known as something called Balancers, which I want you guys to remember that Soul Reapers are balancers of the universe. Just think of that as you will, as we continue on in the series. Uryu, he hates Soul Reapers, and at first we think, okay, it's mainly probably because of that, but we see a little bit more of Uryu as a character. We find out that his grandfather, who was his master, died because Soul Reapers didn't come to help them when they were attacked by like 5 hollows and all that. And we'll talk a little bit more of that like later on down the road, because there's more to that, but it happens in another arc. But we meet Uryu. He's, this stuck-up kind of loner person and all that, and he basically challenges Ichigo to a nice little contest. And basically the contest is who can kill the most hollows. So he uses some bait, some hollows come, and him and Ichigo have a little contest. And as the contest is going, we kind of cut through town a little bit and seeing how the others are dealing with these hollows. And that's when Chad and Orihime unlock their powers. So I love Chad's one, because not only do we get a little bit more insight of his backstory, where we're starting to see like he had some sort of relationship with his grandfather about like being strong and all that, and how he wants to only fight to protect. And that's when Chad gets his awesome arm power. Cool, neat, excellent. I love to see that. And then Orihime, she wants to protect people as well and keep people safe. And so she ends up getting her powers, the Shun Shun Rika, which I always get the name wrong, so I apologize if that actually isn't the name. But basically it's these little like quote unquote fairies that make these shields. So she can make a shield that can protect her. She can make a shield that like heals people. And she also makes a shield that can like go through people and like split people in half and all that. After all this, Ichigo confronts Uryu again, and they have like a little squabble there, and they start fighting together with the hollows, because that's ultimately what Uryu's grandfather wanted, was for Quincy's and Soul Reapers to work together to destroy the hollows. And that's when we get this massive thing here called a Manos Grande. This thing just comes out of the sky and is just like, okay, I'm here to just kind of mosey on in here and see what's going on. And man, we get a lot of like lore and info dump too, with like the idea of spiritual pressure and what these Manos Grande are. And Kisuke Urahara is still there. He's still being mysterious. Rukia tries to get Ichigo away from there, and Urahara basically stops her, saying, yeah, no, we're gonna sit here and watch, because Ichigo needs this. And this is where we see more about like Ichigo and his power. So Ichigo, he doesn't know how to control his spirit energy. He's just been fighting hollows just based off of instinct and all that. What ends up happening is Ichigo goes towards this Manos Grande, and his Manos Grande is about to unleash a Zero upon the world, and he unleashes it, and Ichigo starts blocking it. Uryu, thank you Uryu for, explaining all this. He explains that, if Ichigo always has his power going at full blast, that can't be. Like, if he was doing that, he would not have any more power to begin with. So what's happening is that his power is so bottled up that if it explodes, it's going to do some massive damage. And do some massive damage it does. Like, he ends up dealing a blow to the Manos Grande, basically pushing it back into Hueco Mundo, and Ichigo wins the day. And then his Zanbakuto almost destroys itself, and Uryu has to shoot arrows into the sky. That's a thing. So, all during this, Urahara had, healed Orihime and Chad, and basically had a little chat with them saying, okay, you guys unlocked some power, and you unlocked your powers because of your ties to Ichigo. So watch on and see if you want to be part of this world, if you want to truly help him and be right next to him. So they look on and they make their decisions in this arc. But before we get into that, there are some consequences to what Ichigo did. So Soul Society heard about what Ichigo did, and they now know that no, something's up. We need Rukia Kuchiki back here in the Soul Society because something's not right here. And so they send a captain and a lieutenant. We meet Captain Byakuya Kuchiki and Lieutenant Renji Abarai. And they find Rukia, who is running away because she realizes that she has stayed in the human world for far too long. She needs to leave, and she needs to make sure that people like Ichigo and Kon are protected. So she writes them a little note and just runs away. And she doesn't get really that far because Renji and Byakuya find her fairly easily. And so does Uryu. He confronts them, but he gets his ass easily handed to him by Renji. Basically, Rukia is under arrest. She's either going to be executed right there or taken back to the Soul Society. So again, with the help of Kisuke Urahara, he gets Ichigo to get into his Soul Reaper form and goes to fight. He puts up a good, decent fight against Renji, and Renji, he's talking down to him, obviously, because he's a Soul Reaper, and Ichigo technically isn't. He's just a substitute. He asks him, what's the name of that giant sword you have? Ichigo's like, wait, you guys name your swords? What? First I've heard of that. I didn't know we were supposed to name our swords. And of course Renji's just like, yeah, no. Howl, Zabimaru, now die. And that's where we get this nice little attack here from Renji. Rukia does try to help. She does. But luckily, Ichigo has a thing called Resolve, which we'll dive into at a later date. But Ichigo basically opens up his spirit energy and goes on the attack against Renji, and he's almost about to win until his sword just breaks in half. What's that, you may ask? Oh, here comes Byakuya? Oh, he just attacked Ichigo twice? And now Ichigo's lying there almost dying? Yeah, Byakuya has nothing to really blink about because he'll kill you in a blink of an eye. Even Renji had a hard time following him, and he only caught the second attack. Yeah, so Ichigo loses handily to a captain here. Interesting enough. Okay, cool, neat, great, awesome. One thing I do want to mention is that the manga did this stuff a little differently. So the anime, you barely cut to Byakuya at all, reacting or noticing things and all that. Whereas the manga, there's always a panel of Byakuya, at least in each chapter, or each page or whatever, where he's just kind of looking. He's just there observing, which is fine, but you're always being reminded that he's there. And so, again, he defeats Ichigo easily, and Ichigo, like a little dog, just hey, you're not getting away. And that's when Rukia, she basically saves face and basically saves Ichigo again by kicking his hand away and just telling him, how dare you do that, you lowly human, and basically berates him the same way they were. So they leave the human world for the Soul Society, and that's that. Rukia's gone, and Ichigo is lying there defeated. So that's when Kisuke shows up again, and he's just like, hey, I'm gonna heal you, but you want to save Rukia? You want to get her back? You want to save her? Alright, give me 10 days with you, and I'll get you in tip-top fighting shape. And Ichigo agrees with him. He's just like, alright, yeah, make me better, make me stronger and all that. And not only does Ichigo have some training, but Uryu has his own training, and Orihime and Chad also do some training with a nice little black cat called Yoruichi, and we'll talk about Yoruichi at a later date. So they're all training and getting ready to go into the Soul Society. Now with Ichigo's training, he basically has to learn how to be a Soul Reaper again. So he gets out of his body, becomes a soul, and we basically learn the steps of becoming a Soul Reaper. So Ichigo, he needs to get his strength back being a regular soul and basically excelling in the physical strength that he had as a human as a soul. So that's done by fighting Uryu with some comedy mixed in with the headband of justice and all that. Lesson 1 done. Great, awesome. That was fairly easy. Lesson 2, on the other hand, a little bit different, a little more scary, as they cut his chain of fate and he basically starts turning into a hollow. Now, one thing I want to note here too, the anime didn't say this, but I'm glad the manga did. So the manga stated that it takes a few months for a regular soul to become a hollow. Now with Ichigo being in the hole that he was in, there was a certain gas underneath there that was basically speeding up the process to 72 hours. Bruh. How can you do that to him? So basically, Ichigo has 3 days before he becomes a hollow, and they have to murder him. Ichigo's struggling with all this, and of course, Jinta and Uryu are still like poking fun at him, like spitting at him and joking with him, like if he's hungry or anything. And that's when Ichigo, he starts becoming a hollow. But it's a different hollification than what we saw earlier. So that's what we had with the whole Don Kanonji stuff, and that's why I didn't really talk about it then. I want to talk about it now. So when a whole becomes a hollow, its whole body like blows up, it disintegrates, and then it reforms into a hollow. That's not happening with Ichigo here. The mask is being formed first before the body gets formed. So with Kisuke there, he just states that that's a sign that the body is fighting becoming a hollow. And so Ichigo goes into like this inner world where he meets this guy. Now I know who this guy is, and I know some people know who this guy is, but this guy is going to be super important, not just in the immediate future, but way on down the line in the future. So Ichigo has to basically get his Soul Reaper powers out of himself, which he does, and he breaks out of the hole. Great, awesome. On to the third test. His third test, knock the hat off of Kisuke Urahara. Okay, which basically means he needs to learn the name of his sword. So he ends up getting back into his mindset again, learns the name of his sword, Zangetsu, and that's when we get this wonderful panel, and probably the most iconic part of Bleach with Ichigo and this sword, Zangetsu. And thus Ichigo is able to blow Kisuke's hat off, and he still has a few days of training. Cool, neat, awesome, love to see it. So that's basically where we end off with the training part of the arc. And at the end of it, Orihime, Chad, Uryu, they're all ready to go to Soul Society. Now, again, manga changed a few things here and there, which I prefer like the manga version of them heading over there, because Ichigo actually meets up with Orihime beforehand, and she's just like, yeah, I'm coming along. And he's just like, oh, great, awesome. And like they both kind of share a moment with like the same mindset. I really like it a lot, and I wish the anime had it in there too. And it mainly had to do with the joke with Kisuke, where the way he let them know was he like threw this balloon that kind of looked like it was being written in like a murder victim's blood, which he had a PS little note there saying, if you believe this, you're an idiot. So Orihime and Ichigo both thought that. I thought that was kind of cute, just knowing what happens with them. And yeah, they just head into the Soul Society. That's pretty much it. Yeah, so this was a pretty good arc. If I were to give it a grade, I'd give it a B. This is a very strong opening arc where, you know, I didn't even touch base with a lot of the lore and a lot of the information that we learned throughout the arc, because this will be a 3 hour long video, and I don't think you guys really want that. I mean, I could always talk more about the concepts and stuff from Bleach, but overall, like, a final grade being a B, I think that's fine. As great as this arc is at introducing characters and all that, there are some moments where it is just a little slow with pacing. There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but it's not that it was like super bad or anything, but it wasn't like this great masterpiece or anything. So I think a B is a fair grade, at least for an introductory arc like this. But that's all I have to say. So let me know down in the comments what you thought of this first arc of Bleach. This is like the first 70 chapters of the series, the first like 20 episodes or so. It's been about 4 years since I revisited Bleach, and sitting here now talking about it and thinking about it and revisiting it, I have a new understanding of things and better look at things, that I'm appreciating Bleach more for what it is and what it has been doing. So that's pretty much it. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this first arc. Be sure to like the video if I entertained you in any way, shape, or form. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because you don't want to miss the next Bleach arc review. The next one is going to be the first part of the Soul Society arc. These videos are probably going to be a little bit more lengthy just because of all the content that's going to be put in there. So I'll try to have timestamps here and there about what's going to be what and all that. Yeah, be sure to hit the bell icon as well so you get notified of every time I upload a video. And as always, people, I've been your world champion. Catch you guys in the next video. See ya. I don't need you. Better things are calling on.